1966, the Civil Rights Movement was in effect. Segregation on blacks was bad at the time, and President John F. Kennedy started the Civil Rights Movement. JFK was assassinated in 1963, and then Lyndon B. Johnson became president. Even though he was a racist, he carried on the Civil Rights Movement, and in 1965 he gave blacks the right to vote. Even though they had the right to vote, they were still treated poorly.
But none of that mattered to Texas Western, a member of the Independent Conference. The 1966 NCAA championship game was a key part of the Civil Rights Movement. The game was played in Cole Fieldhouse, Maryland. Coach Don Haskins was the first coach in history to start 5 black players against 5 white players in a championship game. Not until early that year, the Texas Western Miners were the only team to start 5 black players in a single game. Kentucky was the heavily favored winner.
Harry Flaherty, number 44, was from Gary, Indiana. Willie Worsley was number 24 from New York City, New York. Arson Artist was number 20 from Gary, Indiana. Neville Shedd was number 33 from New York City, New York. Bobby Joe Hill was number 14 from Detroit, Michigan. He was arguably their best player and led them to the NCAA championship. Willie Kager was number 10 from New York City, New York. His heart problems kept him out for some of the key games.
Head coach Don Haskins, along with assistant coach Mo Eba and the rest of the Texas Western basketball team, all went to the Hall of Fame. Here it is.
First of all, I want to thank the Hall of Fame for this great honor. But I have to take exception to something that Coach Williams said. And I have to tell him, Don Haskins put a whole team in the Hall of Fame. In 1966, we had 8 black players, 4 white players, and 1 Hispanic player. And our only purpose was to be the best team in the country.
Hall of Famer Coach Adolph Rupp of the Kentucky Wildcats had already won 4 national championships and was trying for his 5th title that night. Coach Rupp said he wasn't racist, but mentioned in a press conference that there was no way that 5 black players could beat 5 white players. At the time, there were no black players in the SEC. 3 years after the loss to Texas Western, soon to be named UTEP, which stands for University of Texas El Paso, Kentucky finally recruited a black player named Tom Payne. Also on the Kentucky starting 5 was a man named Pat Riley, who would soon get drafted by the San Diego Rockets and later on be the GM of the 2012 champions, the Miami Heat. Don Haskins was born and grew up in Enid, Oklahoma. He was born on March 14, 1930. He died on September 7, 2008. He died at age 78. Haskins had 719 wins, a national title, and 14 NCAA tournament appearances. Haskins retired on August 24, 1999. Haskins finished the 19th best coach in Division I basketball. He played college basketball at Oklahoma A&M. He coached and taught at Benjamin High School. He coached boys and girls teams. Haskins won 7 WAC tournaments. Haskins was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame on September 29, 1997. He was a great coach, and most of all, he was a great man. He will be missed.
In the final moments of the game, Kentucky would threaten a comeback. But Texas Western would hold strong, be the first team ever to win a national championship with all 5 starting black players and only 2 black subs. The final score was 72-65, solidifying Don Haskins as one of the best coaches of all time.
Within 3 years, the SEC went from having no black players to every team having at least 1. Afterwards, Coach Don Haskins was regarded very highly in the black community.
No matter where I travel, people always come up to me and thank me for starting 5 black players. I would be somewhere decades later and a black man would come up to me and shake my hand and thank me. Because after that 1966 game, schools around the country began integrating, and he had got a scholarship because of it. Stuff like that just blows my mind. Don Haskins. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was by far one of the most important people who gave blacks freedom in the United States of America. This game came 3 years after the I Have a Dream speech. If this game never happened, it would be likely that there would still be very few black players playing in the NBA, the NCAA, and in other high school leagues. That is why it has such a big impact on black segregation and other ethnicities as well.
About 3 years after that time, I'm sitting looking at the evening paper, the Herald Post, at that time, and I saw the all-conference team in the Southwest Conference, and I saw 5 black guys, and that made me very happy.
We're so glad when we look at today's game and we see the diversity in today's game. It does our hearts good. But we want you to understand one thing. It's a commitment that you have to make to give back to that game.
In 1992, a black man named Rodney King was beat down by several policemen in California. This goes to show how blacks would still be treated poorly if the game didn't happen in other important times in our country, such as Rosa Parks and Malcolm X. University of Texas El Paso, formerly known as Texas Western, has had a long and rich history with blacks and basketball. Kentucky has also came around. They recently won a national championship with mostly black players.
This was a turning point in African American history because it showed the world that blacks were just as good as whites, and not only basketball, but just as human beings as well. That game on March 19th, 1966 made an impact not only on the court, but in the lives of millions. This is one of the reasons that people should not be judged from their ethnicity. Or as the great Don Haskins put it, people should not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the contents of their hearts. There are plenty of games in that 1965-66 Texas Western season, but none nearly as significant or as challenging as that championship game.